Hey everybody, it's Jennifer Littlefleck and welcome to episode 6 of Autobiology Bits, where we are continuing our discussion on Am I doomed if I inherit bad genes from my parents? In episode 5, we talked about the current state of genetics and epigenetics and how just because you inherit certain genes from your parents doesn't necessarily mean they'll be turned on and expressed in a bad way. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how those epigenetic changes occur.
Welcome to Autobiology Bits with Jennifer Littlefleck, the podcast where you can hear real-life biology stories from a quirky maven to help you become an expert on your own biology. If high school biology had been as interesting as this podcast, you might have become a doctor. Introducing autobiologist Jennifer Littlefleck.
The answer to that question is 3 things: your environment, what you eat, and your biochemistry, or the sum total of all of the chemical reactions that happen in your body every second of the day to keep you running. All right, so when I say environment, what do you think about? Do you think about trees, grass, maybe just getting your toes in the dirt? Yeah, those are the good parts of the environment. But I also want you to think about the other parts of the environment, maybe man-made, things that aren't so great, certain toxins in the air, pollution, chemicals, things that we don't necessarily think about being exposed to, but are just there and we don't even notice them anymore. But sometimes I'm literally just talking about the geographic place that you live. You know, do you live in Germany? Do you live in Mexico? Do you live in the United States? That really is your environment too, because in these different places, we are exposed to different things, good and bad. And sometimes those bad things, we can't even pinpoint what they are exactly. And here is a perfect example. Recently, in the last couple of years, there's been an accumulating amount of research showing that immigrant Asian women to the United States, so I'm in the United States, not sure where you are in the world, I'd love to know if you want to drop me a line. But I'm in the U.S., and Asian women who come to live in the U.S. from their native country have an astonishingly higher risk of developing breast cancer after they move to the United States. Specifically, California is the data that they've looked at. That's where everybody's moved to. And I'm in Pennsylvania. I am not in California. And they cannot figure out why, people. They cannot figure it out. I mean, all they know is that these people lived in their native countries, they moved to California, and they're getting breast cancer at much, much higher rates. And, you know, the thing is it may not be just one thing. Think about it. There's all these different things that you're exposed to throughout your lifetime. And who knows if something in the environment in California was like the straw that broke the camel's back, right? If you will. In an interesting way to think about this is, listen, I'm a 70s baby. I was born in 74. So when I was growing up, lead paint in houses was kind of a big deal. And, you know, there was lots and lots of kids who developed learning disabilities because they were exposed to lead paint in their houses. Now, some kids, you know, were basically eating handfuls of paint chips. And so they were the ones having the most problems. But then you had some kids who just lived in the house and they weren't licking the windowsill or anything. So they turned out okay. Their body could handle whatever amount of lead paint that they were exposed to. But you know, what if then you are now in your 20s and you have horrible teeth and you have to get like 4 fillings, which is not unusual for somebody who was, you know, growing up in the 80s and 90s to have to go get a whole bunch of fillings. And back then they were still mercury fillings. So now you're in your 20s and potentially you've been exposed to lead paint. Now you've been exposed to mercury toxicity from fillings. And hopefully by now, if you're in your 40s like me, you've had those all replaced. But, you know, you're still at this point only in your 20s. So what else, you know, is going to pile on? by the time you reach 50, right? So this is what I'm talking about when it comes to your environment and your exposures. You don't know what specifically is going to be cumulative. You don't know what you don't know basically about your environment. Like these women who are migrating to the US from Asia. So, all right, next we are going to talk about nutrition. Now you're probably thinking, I'm going to lecture you on vegetables. And all right, maybe I might do that, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. Right now, I want to talk about how does your body specifically handle nutrition? And that largely has to do with your microbiome. So let's talk about the microbiome. Do you know what it is? Well, the microbiome is all the microorganisms and their genomes that live in your gastrointestinal tract. It is suggested that there are trillions of bacteria residing in the human gut. And that's close to the number of cells in the whole human body. Yep. And these microorganisms, oh my God, I can't talk today. There are bacteria, viruses, fungi, all these different kinds of things that can colonize your gut. Yeah. And for you science people out there, that's written 3 times 10 to the 13th bacteria. Now, doesn't it make you wonder who's actually the host here? There's some interesting theories out there that the human body was created just basically as a giant suit for all these microorganisms who came together and formed colonies to have some way to get around. And really, we're just the subconscious of all of these bacteria and microorganisms. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, doesn't it seem crazy that the microbiome contains over 3 million genes? And you're like, hey, hold on a second. Hey, do you remember back in episode 5 how many genes I told you that we have as humans in our cells? Yeah, only 20,000 to 25,000 genes. But these microorganisms in our gut have over 3 million genes. Now, at this point, scientists have really been able to catalog all of them. Only about 60 to 80% or so can be cultured. But still, we've identified quite a few. And we know that there are good bacteria and there are bad bacteria. And whether or not you're healthy, a lot of times depends on which way the scales tip in terms of, do you have a larger population of good versus bad, or the other way around? Now, before we get into the good versus the bad, let's talk about, what do those microorganisms do in your gut day to day? And why is the microbiome becoming almost considered another organ system? Yeah, it really is. It's already considered to be part of the immune system because of all of the surprising number of functions that it does. Like it stimulates actually the immune system development and make sure that everything is, homeostatic, everything's cool, everything's chill. But it also all these bacteria also maintain the intestinal barrier integrity. So it lines your intestinal tract and makes sure that it stays nice and healthy and lubricated, and that your food doesn't, go through your intestines until it's totally broken down into its, smallest pieces, and then it can be absorbed into your bloodstream, right? And one of the other things that these microorganisms do is they help you to break down the nutrients from your diet, from your food. And they can also synthesize certain essential vitamins and neurotransmitters right in your gut. And that is what helps us, that is what has been helping us understand the gut-brain connection. Yeah, because a lot of these neurotransmitters, which are chemicals that help your brain cells talk to each other, they're actually made in your gut by these bacteria. So you can understand now how all the research is showing how these bacteria in your gut modulate your neurobehavior. All of the things that emotions and things that you feel in your brain are often signals coming from your gut from these bacteria. They also regulate your hormone functions. They have a lot to do with managing your bone density. And one of the other major things they do is they help with drug biotransformation. So they help break down drugs in your system so that they're more readily usable by your body. Now, that is quite the list, right? Yeah. So I hope that, if you're hearing this for the first time, you understand how important it is to have a healthy microbiome. I mean, it is specifically connecting your brain to all the other parts of your body. Now, let's talk about the bad bacteria. Come on, if you listen to episode number 3, I think it is, where my kids were talking about farts, then you know that there are certain bacteria that get fed by certain foods you eat that produce gas. And when you eat certain foods, it feeds the unfriendly bacteria more than the friendly bacteria. And so these unfriendly bacteria start to overpopulate and bad things happen. You get bloated, you get sick, you become either constipated or you have to go to the bathroom all the time. Like all these really awful things start to happen when you get this overpopulation of unfriendly bacteria. So I'm talking about, things like salmonella. Come on, you've all heard the recalls, the grocery store, there's salmonella in food. And then another big one is H. pylori. Now, what are some of the friendly bacteria? You've probably all seen this on yogurts. Lactobacillus species is really good. And then you have Bifidobacterium. I never say that out loud. I just read it and write it a lot. That's a weird word. But yeah, so those are examples of friendly bacteria. And so how do we make sure that we get more of the friendly bacteria than the unfriendly bacteria? And the primary way is, you guessed it, the diet. And more specifically, they have seen that the ketogenic diets are the best ones when you want to quickly turn the tide and get the friendly bacteria up to snuff. So the ways that you can do that, there's 2 major things. Obviously, you can introduce prebiotics and probiotics. And do you know the difference between the 2? All right, prebiotics are substances that feed the bacteria that already live in your gut, the good bacteria that are already there, okay? But probiotics introduce new bacteria that are good into your gut. All right, so how do we know when our microbiome is out of sync, when we have more bad bacteria than good bacteria? Well, a super easy way to know is take a look at your skin, because just like there is a gut-brain connection, it's actually a trifecta of gut, brain, and skin. The skin is the window to how healthy your gut is. So if you are having skin issues, my friend, then you have to address it immediately through your diet. That is the most effective way. And actually, our next episode is with Dr. Jen Haley, and she and I will be talking more about that. Dr. Jen is a dermatologist. So yeah, listen up for the next episode. So another way to know what's going on in your microbiome is to measure it. Yeah, there's actually a test that you can take from a company called Viome. They have a couple of different kinds of tests. They have a gut intelligence test and a health intelligence test. And the gut intelligence test specifically focuses on, what is happening like in the gut. And you can measure how your human, mitochondrial, and microbial genes are all expressed in your body. And then they tell you what to do. They give you tips based on what's going on in there. Their health intelligence test gives you a lot of other information too. So I'm actually very excited because I just got my Viome test and I will be doing that shortly. So I will definitely be doing a podcast on that to let you know the results and all the cool stuff I learned. But yeah, that is one other way to know. And as of this recording, they are running a special right now for $199. You can get the full health intelligence test. And I'm not sure how much their other one is, $129 for their gut intelligence test. And then if you want, they can actually send you supplement packets every month based on your results. If you don't have a way of figuring that out, or you don't want to figure out which supplements to buy and how much to use, they can provide that to you. So it's pretty cool. I will put a link in the show notes. I am not an affiliate for Viome. But they did give me a link to share with you a $10 off coupon. So have at it. One of the reasons I'm so excited about that Viome test is because no two people have the same makeup in their microbiome. That's right. Every single person's microbiome is completely unique to them. That's why, some people, feel great when they eat certain foods, while another person can eat that same food and feel awful because it's nurturing different bacteria in their gut, just depending on, what's in it. That's why the personalized recommendations from Viome, I think, are going to be so awesome in really pinpointing, what's good for me versus what things that I should avoid. So I'm pretty excited about that. And it's important because the microbiome literally, it controls your body. It can, just remember at the beginning of the segment how many things I said it controlled. I mean, it was basically everything. And, that's important because if it's directing particular nutrients that we eat, or the bad bacteria is there preventing certain nutrients from being absorbed, that directly affects our biochemistry, which we're going to talk about next. So my favorite topic is vitamin C. If you are my friend or personal or part of my family, then you're probably either sick to death of hearing about vitamin C, or you're like, oh my God, it's awesome because I did what you said and I take it with every meal and before bed and I feel amazing. So yeah. Why do I talk about vitamin C so much? Well, because it fixes so many things when you take it at high enough doses at frequent enough intervals. And why can it fix so many things? Well, because it's required for so many reactions in your body. It is truly one of those vitamins that we can't live without because, it's, I don't know what you think of when you think of the word vitamin, but what it really means is it's a vital amine, which is a chemical that is used in many ways throughout the body. All right, let's talk real quickly. What does vitamin C do? Well, it has two major functions. The first one is that it is an enzyme cofactor. So it needs to be, it's just, part of the ingredient mix, if you will, for certain reactions to occur. And then the other thing is it's a very potent antioxidant. So let's talk about those two things. As an enzyme cofactor, one of the things that it absolutely is necessary for is the synthesis of collagen. And collagen is in your skin. It's the building block of your skin, basically. So they've known since the 1980s, early 80s, that vitamin C is absolutely essential for wound repair in skin. So why? To this day, every single person who has a cut or a scrape or, is healing from surgery and has surgical incisions, why they are not given a prescription for huge, massive doses of vitamin C, I don't understand. The other thing that vitamin C is involved in is creating neurotransmitters such as serotonin and norepinephrine. The other thing that we talked about is that it's a powerful antioxidant, which means that it is a potent reducing agent, donating electrons to reactive oxygen species to get back to homeostasis. Now, I know that you've all heard of reactive oxygen species, ROSs, not to be confused with ROUSs from The Princess Bride, rodents of unusual size. Yeah, I had to get it in there. All right. So, so what are reactive oxygen species? Well, when your cells make energy, they have byproducts after the energy process, and those are reactive oxygen species. And unfortunately, when we don't have enough vitamin C around, they accumulate and become very toxic to us and cause all kinds of bad things, and especially aging. The aging process is very susceptible to reactive oxygen species. But what vitamin C can do is calm those reactive oxygen species down, because what happens is these ROSs are going around because they're unstable. They're missing an electron, and they're going around stealing electrons from all of your other cells or chemicals, that are in the tissues. And then they cause those to become unstable. And it's a chain reaction, a cascade of events. So what vitamin C is able to do is say, you know what? Here is an electron for you, stabilize. And then everything gets back to normal. Now, creating ROSs is just a normal byproduct of the way that, our body works. But when we eat a diet that is high enough in vitamin C for our needs, then that doesn't happen. Now, how do you know how much vitamin C you need? That is a very interesting question. And I love talking about this because it's so crazy. Now, I will start out by telling you that the recommended daily allowance for vitamin C is around, I'm going to say an average of like 90 milligrams a day. That's so pitiful. But that really is not based on reality. That is based on the amount that you need to ingest on a daily basis to not die from scurvy. That's not the amount that you need on a daily basis to combat reactive oxygen species or to heal wounds or to be ready and available should something, horrible befall you. No. It's not enough. For example, let's look at cows. Cows make about 12,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. 12,000 milligrams a day. They can make it. Do you want to know how much humans make? 0. Yeah, we lost the ability to make vitamin C several iterations ago. Primates cannot make vitamin C. And there's a couple other animals that cannot make vitamin C either. But not only do cows make 12,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C, but they also get even more through what they eat in the grass. Okay, so cows are kind of big, right? All right, let's talk about an animal that's not so huge. Let's talk about cats. Cats make about 180 milligrams of vitamin C a day. What's the human RDA? Yeah, it's less than 100. Does that make any sense to you? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, so we are dependent on vitamin C, on getting vitamin C from our diet. And let me ask you about how great your diet is, or how great your teenager's diet is, who has all of these crazy chemical reactions going on way more than you or me, because they are still growing. They're going through puberty and maturing, and they need more of everything. More. All right, so let's talk about how much vitamin C apes eat every day. Now, apes, they're primates like us. They can't make it. So they solely get it from their diet, except they're smarter than us. They actually eat things that they know are good for them. And they eat about 4,500 milligrams per day. That's 4,500 milligrams a day. What's the human RDA again? Yeah, less than 100. Makes no sense. All right, guinea pigs, on the other hand, also cannot make vitamin C, so they have to get it from their diet, and they ingest around 30 milligrams a day on their own. 30. Yeah, that's kind of closer to what the recommended human RDA is, and they're like the size of our hand. Yeah, again. Okay, now I'm going to talk about one more animal, because I know you're like, I'm getting tired of listening to you talk about vitamin C. But goats, healthy goats make about 13,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C when they're healthy. Now, if you've ever talked to a veterinarian who takes care of goats, they will tell you this. Goats are the healthiest mammals. They almost never, ever get sick. And when they do, it's like go balls to the wall or go home, man. They come, whenever they get sick, it's like fatal. Usually that's how sick they get, because they don't get the small stuff. They just get the big stuff. But here's the thing. When they do get sick, their vitamin C production ramps up to 100,000 milligrams a day when they're sick. The human recommended daily allowance, again, I will remind you, is less than 100. And it doesn't even specify if you're healthy, if you're sick, how old you are, all these things that would massively factor into how much you need every day. So how much vitamin C you need every day is completely individual. It's totally up to you, your underlying health conditions, how old you are, how healthy your microbiome is, all these different things. And that is what controls the state of your biochemistry. How much of the basic ingredients of the chemicals that we need to carry out those reactions do you have available? But now I'm going to share with you probably the coolest thing about vitamin C. And it is magical. Do you remember when we talked in episode 5 about how there's 2 main ways that these bad epigenetic changes occur? Through methylation, where it silences the gene, and through histone modification, where it kind of unwinds or superwinds the DNA. Well, vitamin C is a demethylator. I know! This is huge, huge news, you guys. That means that when something comes along and that methyl group attaches to a particular part of a gene sequence and silences that gene so that it can't make a protein necessary for you to be healthy, vitamin C can come along and rip that methyl group off, and suddenly you can make your protein again. That is amazing. And if that isn't enough for you to start taking vitamin C with every single meal and before bedtime, which is what I recommend, 1,000 milligrams, I don't know what to tell you. Then you're doomed. All right, well, maybe you're not doomed, but you're not going to be as healthy as you could be. All right, before we go today, I'm going to talk to you about one other biochemical reaction, which is based on magnesium. You probably don't think about magnesium much, do you? Yeah, I didn't either until a few years ago when I learned that it is the basis for over 300 chemical reactions in your body. And what I also learned is there's like 7 different kinds of magnesium, at least. Well, there's 7 major forms of magnesium. So then I was like, well, which one do I take? And well, the answer to that question is you really should take all of them. And most people only get like 1 or 2 forms of synthetic magnesium in supplements that they take. But when you take all 7 of these major forms together, something amazing happens. Your body gets all the magnesium it needs for all these different 300 reactions, and you feel amazing. Most people probably don't realize that everyone is deficient in magnesium. And the reason why we are so deficient compared to, when our grandparents were younger is because it used to be in the soil. So when we would all have gardens back, in the 40s and 50s, even 30s, we got a lot of our magnesium from the vegetables we grew in our garden because it was in our soil. But the magnesium has been depleted from our soils, at least here in the U.S. I can't speak for the rest of the world, just because the way that we farm and by and large from all the horrible crap we put on our grass. Yeah, so anyway, I could not believe when I started reading all of the studies about how deficient people are. I mean, it's basically like, for every 10 people, like one person might have normal levels. And so how do you get all these 7 forms? Well, I will tell you what I do. I take a supplement called Magnesium Breakthrough, and it has all 7 forms in just the right amounts, and I love it. I take it at night mostly because, if you're familiar, if you've ever taken the Calm gummies at night, women typically do this, that is magnesium. Yeah. So it is very calming. It's chilling. So I take it in the evening with dinner. Sometimes if I'm super stressed out, I'll take 1 in the afternoon with my lunch. But yeah, I'll pop 2 for dinner. And that's how I get my magnesium. In the show notes, I will attach some studies that show you just how deficient, people, at least in the US, are in magnesium. I think you'll find it interesting or not. But I will also put a link in the show notes to that product I take, Magnesium Breakthrough. It is really amazing. And if you use my link, you'll get, all kinds of offers and some discounts if you bundle products, because that company is called Bioptimizers, and they make actually some amazing supplements. And I also take their enzyme supplement called Masszymes, and that is how I make sure that my farts are under control. As we learned from episode 3, about how your food, even some good food, causes gas. And a lot of that can be mitigated by enzymes helping you break down your food a little better. But I digress. But yeah, so I'll post a link to those in the show notes and you can check them out. And one more thing that's really awesome that I want to tell you about today is something called True Diagnostic True Age Test. And it brings together both episodes 5 and 6, where in episode 5, we talked about your DNA, basic unit of inheritance, and that's genetics, right? But epigenetics studies the way in which your genes are expressed in real time. Just because you have a particular gene doesn't mean that it's going to be expressed in a way that's detrimental to your health. You have control over that through your environment, what you eat, which directly affects your biochemistry. Now, just like with the Microbiome Test, you want to know what's going on inside your gut? Well, guess what? The True Diagnostics True Age Test looks at your epigenetic changes and tells you how you're doing. And just like the Microbiome Test, it tells you things that you can do to change your epigenetic age. That's right. You can be younger or older than your chronological age on the inside. That is so cool. That is amazing. Anyway, so I'm super excited about that. I am not an affiliate for the True Age Test, but I will leave a link in the show notes so you can check it out. I have just ordered mine as well, so I will also share those results with you on another episode of Autobiology Bits. But yeah, check it out for sure. All right, it's time for What Did You Learn Today? All right, so we learned throughout episodes 5 and 6 that our genes are inherited from our parents, absolutely. But epigenetics teaches us that how those genes are expressed they change in real time depending on where you live, what you eat, and how much of basic chemical components like vitamin C, like magnesium, you have to carry out all the chemical reactions in your body. We learned how important the microbiome is in basically dictating all of these chemical reactions in your body and whether or not your brain is functioning properly. We know that we can find out about how our microbiome is doing through a test from Biome, and we can actually take another test from True Diagnostics, their True Age Test, to tell us, are we older on the inside than our chronological age? pretty awesome. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. And stay tuned for our next episode with Dr. Jen Haley. She will be talking to us about skin health in babies and kids.
Do you have an autobiology question for Jennifer? Ask it at autobiology.net or Instagram at Autobiology with Jennifer. And keep listening to see if your question has been featured. And remember, anyone can be an autobiologist. This podcast is for information purposes only. Any of the discussions or products held herein are not in any way offered as prescription, diagnosis, nor treatment for any disease, illness, infirmity, or physical condition. Any form of self-treatment or alternative health program necessarily must involve an individual's acceptance of some risk, and no one should assume otherwise. Persons needing medical care should obtain it from a physician. Consult your doctor before making any health decision. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. The podcast host may have direct or indirect financial gains from products discussed on this podcast.